Oh, good, good. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to present. As you can see, the topic that I'm going to talk about is family learning, and this is through community learning centers in Botswana. Let me first start by saying family learning is a sort of a new concept to us because we don't have anything called family learning centers in Botswana. But this has come across as a result of when I present, you realize that for many years now, the Botswana education has been disappointing the citizen in terms of a number of reasons that I'm going to be given right now. I've actually prepared my presentation to follow this structure. I'm going to give you a very brief background of education in Botswana so that you understand where I'm coming from. But my focus will be on foundational education. Foundational education in Botswana is the first 12 years of schooling. Then from there, I'll talk about the current challenges of foundational education. And then from there, talk about why I believe family learning can be brought in to promote foundational education in Botswana. Then I'm proposing that we do have community learning centers in almost each community, but these community learning centers are not used to complement the formal education. And I'm proposing that these community learning centers can be used as structures for family learning so that the foundational education can be improved. Then I'll give a little bit of a conclusion and references. This is a very brief overview of education in Botswana. We have two systems in Botswana. We have the public education and the private. I'm going to talk more about the public education because the public education is education that is government sponsored, and everything, the curriculum and everything is decided by the government. But at the same time, it is government sponsored, but it's not, it is free, but it's not mandatory. But you find that almost every parent in Botswana, they take their children to school, despite the fact that they are not forced to do that. We do have almost every year 10%, which they call them 10% missing children, where the education system at times it fails to account where this 10% of the children who are supposed to be in foundational education are. But there are reasons that I'm going to give that could account for this 10%. But most of the parents, they do send their children to school, despite the fact that it is not mandatory. The education system in Botswana, it receives the largest share of total government expenditure almost every year. 30%, 38, I think last year it was about 28% and more, the largest of all. But for the past 6 or even 10 years, I can say that outcome and impact has been very, very disappointing to an extent that the government had to come up with a new strategy or a new plan called education training and strategic plan and strategic plan to try to address the problems of education, especially the foundational years. Those problems, I'll touch on them as I go on. Uh, Public education, especially in the foundational years, like I said, the first 12 years of schooling, it uses what we call automatic progression. Students, they just go from one student to another. And this automatic progression has actually contributed to the poor quality of education because some of them, they will move up to high or junior secondary without any knowledge of how to do the basic things or even getting the basic life skills. So this automatic progression perhaps is the one that has really caused me to say perhaps if parents are brought in to take part in their education, something can be improved. There is always some in most African countries, urban rural disparities are there in terms of the schools. You find that schools in the rural areas are not as well resourced as schools in the urban areas. You find that even teachers, trained teachers, at times they are even reluctant to go to rural areas because of the conditions in the rural areas. Because at times you can stay there a month or so without even being paid. But I think these days it has improved because of the technology. But it used that. There's a lot of teachers disbandment in Botswana. Specifically, they feel like they are not paid as much as they could be paid. So for the past 5 years, they have not been doing some of the things that we expect from a teacher, like extramural. They do that only if they are paid. So these are some of the problems, and especially in the foundational education that we are facing as a country right now. I'm just going to give you an idea of foundational education, but here more detailed. We do have the primary education. Primary education is from grade 1 to 7, and they normally start at 6 years with primary school leaving certificate at when they are 13 years. And then from primary school, they move to junior secondary school. And junior secondary school is grade 8 to 10. And normally the ages of children are 13 to 15. And this takes 3 years. And then from there, they move to what we call senior secondary school. And senior secondary school is grade 11 to 12. And the age level is normally 15 to 17, and it takes 2 years. If you add all those years, you'll see that we do have 12 years of foundational education. From the junior secondary school now, they proceed to tertiary education, which I have not touched because my presentation is on foundational education. And in the new, it's not new now, but that is the latest education and training sector strategic plan 2015 and 2020. The government has set itself a continuum of education, and it has set itself goal for each of the ages as specified there. You realize that from 0 to 16, the government intended to provide excellent start in education so that all learners can have a better foundation for future learning. And this was a concern, like I've said earlier, that most of the children in these years, the result, the outcome at the end of the primary living certificate, they are so disappointing. You find that at times it's only less than 30 of people who get a C and above. The rest are D's, E's, what they have to proceed with those poor results. So the government said, we need to do something so that we can have an excellent start for these people, so that they can have a better education to move along with the levels of education. So this is the period I am actually concerned about, that if parents can be brought in during this period through family learning, then perhaps the foundational education can be improved. Then 16 to 18, the government is hoping that when they have been given a better foundation, then children are able to take their own initiative to learn, equip themselves with the skills, knowledge, and personal qualities needed for life and work. Because what we are currently facing in Botswana is that even after 12 years of schooling, some of them, they cannot even do anything because they lack life skills. Because the education has promised them that we will channel you through the university level, then from there you will get white collar employment. But that's not the issue. Many of them, they get very disappointed. But the government has actually wished that at least when they are 16, we should actually give them that opportunity to develop themselves and to develop the skills for life and work. And then the 18 and 19 are those, we will talk about that later. So that is the continuum. This will give you an idea of the population of the people that we are talking about, which is 0 to 8, 19. You realize that these are the majority in Botswana down there. The first is 5 to 9, 10 to 14, and 15 to 19. These are the people that we are concerned about before they go to tertiary education. And then you realize that this population is among the majority. So there's really need for the government to see what to do, because if they don't get very good foundation in education, then they move along there without anything preparing them for life and for work. So this was just to give you an idea of the population in Botswana as of 2014. I didn't get the latest um, statistics, but we are still 2.4 million, the whole population in Botswana. This will give you an idea. Then, what are the main challenges in our foundational years of schooling? Restricted access to quality, and I'll say quality education. Quality education in Botswana in the new strategic plan has been defined as having life skills, being developing lifelong learning habits, having preparing oneself or self-directedness. Those are the types of quality that Botswana wants right now. But as it is right now, you find that many of children, especially the disadvantaged groups, being those people in the rural areas, the minority ethnic groups, and people with disabilities, they do not have access to quality education. Just perhaps very few of, like I said, about 30% of the students actually manage to go through. So we do have that. We do also have, we still have, though it is not at a great level, but we still have a problem of dropout of school. For example, due to pregnancy. During foundational years, we still have children who get pregnant at very, very early age. Some of the children, when it comes the seasonal harvesting or planting season, they leave schools. They follow their parents to go and help in the at the lands or the cattle pools. Like I told you that schooling in Botswana is not mandatory, but of course it is free. Everyone is encouraged to do that. Some of them, especially in the rural areas, they will leave and go and stay with their parents. Although, like I said, these are not big numbers, but they're still there. Others, truancy. There are some children who cannot be accounted for. They have left school. Where are they? No one knows where they are and why they have left school. All these things that I'm saying, it's not that they are the gap or they are in the majority, no, but the problem is still there. The migratory patterns of some of our, you all know that we still have the same, or people who are still migrating from one uh, community to other, following food. We still have that. And when it comes for time to move, they will move and leave school. So we have that problem. Issue of language barriers. In Botswana, only two languages are used, English and Setswana. And at times you find that there are communities in Botswana who do not know the two languages. They don't know English, they don't know Setswana, they speak their ethnic languages. When they get to school, they actually made these strange languages. And some of them, because they cannot cope with these strange languages, they leave school. Uh, but like I said, with others, these are not many, but we still have those. Economic pressures, we still experience, uh, especially from the disadvantaged minorities, children being used as farm laborers. Some of them, their parents were farm laborers. From there, they take over from their parents. They are still there. So these are the main challenges, currently the main challenges in foundational education. In addition to education that I said is not, people are not happy about, because many children who are in school are failing, and some of them, they exit school without life skills to do something. So I have done a number of research in the area of community learning centers. And these community learning centers, they have the potential to be used to facilitate foundational learning, especially if parents can be brought in, because these community learning centers are located in communities. And we do have what we call lifelong learning centers. We have what we call keystone centers. We have public communities. We have cultural learning centers, and we have community halls that are in rural and urban communities. They can be used as structure to facilitate family learning. I'm going to go right now into explaining, taking just 3 examples to explain what these are. Kids on centers. By the way, Kizong is a Tswana word meaning enlightenment or education. So we do have Kizong centers. These Kizong centers are private public partnerships, and they have been started by Mascom. And people are actually given for free, or the centers is built for free and given to youth to operate it. And these, when they started, the goal was to bridge the rural and urban digital divide, because in the Kizon centers, we do have computers with internet connected. So they are placed in rural areas, but including some urban villages, so that youth and other people can come in, access internet for free. So as of 2018, there were about 110 of these across the country. This was said by the then minister, Iso Mukaila. And what they do, like I've already said, there is internet service that is accessed in these areas. They do some training and some business support, including web hosting. What has been found is that as of now, the services provided in Kitchen Center, they have made tremendous improvement in the lives of some people. As of now, there is no family learning taking place in here. People just go there on their own, and especially they are used by the youth. And I'm saying this is one platform which the government can use for family learning. I'll explain family learning as I go on. The public and community library, some years back, we had a grant from the Global Library Initiative by Bill and Melinda Gates, and they came to Botswana, like other countries, to install computers and internet in public libraries. I think in Botswana, they did that in 78 public libraries across the country. And these public libraries are doing a lot. I still remember sometimes in 2010, I was involved in one of the studies whereby we were going around just to see the impact. And the impact was great because some of the youth, they had actually used the internet in the libraries to start businesses like vegetable gardening, like their own internet cafes from that. So the public libraries, they provide free information. They can be used for learning avenues. They are used again for training activities for community members. But like I've said, nothing in sort of family learning is in place. The lifelong learning centers are operated by the Ministry of Basic Education, the Department of Out of School, and they are specifically used for out of school. There are some where they have gone into partnership with Botswana Open University, like the Tamalagane and the other one. So these centers are just targeted at improving literacy level or providing life skills and other basic education. So these centers too, if planned well, they can also accommodate family learning. So that is what I was saying. So let me just now talk briefly about the concept of family learning. Like I said, it is a new concept because we don't have them. First of all, let me try to say that the way family learning has been presented by those who are doing it, and then I compare it with what we do in Botswana. That's why I'm saying traditional culture and family learning. And I ask myself, will this be possible if you take our traditional culture and the way we are supposed to be handling or talking with our youth or our children? There are, for example, in our tradition, some topics that are taboo or that are very difficult to discuss with your own children. Some topics I think you will understand, for example, issues of sexuality, you cannot freely discuss them with your own children, but this thing is changing. So I was looking at them and I was saying, will this be possible with this cultural background? And I said, yes, it will be possible with this cultural background, because many families now, they have people who are educated, people who are moving a little bit away from a culture which says you have boundaries when you talk, or when you of what you can talk with your children. But we know now that um, as parents and as children, we have to partner in each and every topic so that we can help each other. So the proposed idea of family learning, I've taken this one from Scotland idea, who they are saying family learning can be a powerful method of engagement and learning that can foster positive attitude towards lifelong learning and promote socio-economic resilience and challenge educational disadvantage. I've talked about educational disadvantage of some children perhaps leaving schools when they feel like leaving schools during the harvesting. If parents have been told that those community halls or those Kizo center in your community, you can use them to learn with your, to learn together with your children. This can be used at flexible time as long as the curriculum and everything is guided by the government, like in some countries. The idea of family learning again is to provide opportunity for family to learn together. In a study like that I went in 2012, we have actually realized this was a study by Parents Twins. It's a private consultancy, and it was actually evaluating the Bill and Gates Melinda Foundation libraries, and it found that yes, indeed, there are some few people who come as families to learn together in these libraries. So I'm saying if there is an indication that they do that, yes, family, I mean, community learning centers, they can be used for family learning, where parents and children can partner in life skill learning. In 2018, I did a study of community learning centers for UNESCO, because they wanted to see if community learning centers can actually be a backbone for community development. And yes, indeed, in a number of libraries, we found that people, they group together, do something like sewing, basketry, beadwork, literacy, etc. So if people already know that they can group themselves and do something like skills, why can't we bring in issue of foundational education and lifelong learning in, so that children can learn with their children, with their, I mean, parents can learn with their children, so that this can complement what is happening in schools. Kids on Center, training and empowerment, especially of youth. This was the same study that I did in 2018, where we found that youth really, they are self-directed. They go to these Kizo centers on their own to want to do something. And there was in one village where we found that even the community itself, they actually mobilized itself around this Kizo center. They did not have a shelter. We call it Lobo, where this shelter is a big shelter. They built a big shelter where during the meeting, the quota meeting or community meeting, they could use it, use the shelter. So these are some of the things that actually demonstrate that these structures that are placed in communities, they can work. I think I'm getting to the conclusion, and the conclusion is that, sorry, life skill, lifelong learning, and partnership, they are as excellent start for children 0 to 15, so that they can have a better foundation for future. That is our, from the education and training sector strategic plan of 20, sorry, that is 2015. That's what the government wants. And I am thinking that family learning using the community learning centers that are already in different communities. It can help the government to achieve this a better foundation for future learning. And then family learning, if the government wants to use it to help